Menopause Warriors. Today we're talking about mental health and menopause. The majority of us are in the sandwich generation. That means that we are still possibly caring for our youngsters, even though they're probably young adults by now. You might actually be caring for grandchildren too. And you also might be sandwiched in between that by caring for elderly parents or relatives. And a lot of us in our upbringing were taught to be quite stoic and to just get on with it and to bite your upper lip and stop making a fuss. That, in some instances, is biting you in the bum. The reason for that is because previous generations, they had a much more defined role. You were the mother, you were the housewife, in many cases, not all, but the vast majority. Whereas nowadays, single women, I've been single for years and years and years by choice. But that does mean that you do the role of what would necessarily be a partnership. Plus, we are working. We're also keeping our homes and our gardens, as well as all the other stuff that we do. And while I love the freedom that we have, I love the emancipation, I love that we have choice, it also does come with a few payoffs. And while I would never want to go back to the oppression and the suppression of women's voices, I think it's really important that we do understand that we are not robots. And particularly through this quite tumultuous time of life when hormones are more volatile, your resilience to stress naturally falls as your estrogen falls. You might be more prone to anxiety, and the fact that you're getting older and you might not feel that you've got to quite where you wanted to be in life. And you're thinking, holy heck, the years are running out. I figured I'd be so much more advanced in whatever it might be by now than I actually am. And that in and of itself creates anxiety. I've been there myself too. I feel a lot of these things myself. So today's episode really is to encompass all of that. And then next week's will be the follow-on. So this is almost like a two-parter. Next week's episode will be about the strategies and steps that you can take to further build your resilience and build in pockets of time in your day, even if you're really busy, to help you mitigate how you might be feeling right now. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Kate. I'm 55. I don't take HRT. I never have done. I went through perimenopause early. I was through with the whole thing by about the age of 41. And I share tips and strategies around lifestyle that is going to help to support you, whether you choose to take HRT or not. Whatever you can do to support your lifestyle is always, always, always going to have a positive impact on your journey through life. So if you find this video helpful, please like it. And if you want to see more of these, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and it'll make sure that you don't miss future episodes. Firstly, I want to talk about the brain, the biology of the brain. It is not just you going mad. It's not all in your head. It is actually in your brain. If you want to do any further research on this topic at all, follow Dr. Lisa Mosconi. She is amazing. She's a neuroscientist. She talks a lot about women's brains and the menopausal years. And I think she's just one of those very few people that talk so much sense, grounded in science. And I think you'll find her really helpful. She doesn't push you towards the hormonal route. She's very much about lifestyle, supporting you, but she's not anti-HRT either. But essentially, estrogen has a neuroprotective role on the brain. It supports serotonin, dopamine, GABA, and glucose uptake. So energy in the brain, how well you feel, the reward centers, the calming aspects of your brain activity. And during menopause, and particularly perimenopause, when estrogen levels are fluctuating quite wildly and also obviously dropping off as you go through into postmenopausal years, that means that your brain is not finding it as easy to create these various chemicals that are supporting you. It also means that you don't quite have so much brain energy, which can contribute to the lack of memory, the brain fog, the irritability, because I know what it's like when you wake up and you just feel like you've got this stuff in your head that you can't get rid of. And once upon a time, you might have been highly organized, highly structured, highly disciplined. And, a few years later, you can't even remember what you were trying to say that was highly important and things that you knew were really specific. And the whole idea has completely left your brain. when it was so clear just a few seconds beforehand. And that is a common symptom of the menopausal years. I want you to know also that this is a phase, it is transitory. You do tend to, whether it's you get used to it and you find the rhythm that supports you best as you get older, or whether it is the fact that the brain actually settles down because it's got used to not having so much estrogen. The body is a great balancer, and we don't need as much estrogen because we're not in our reproductive years. So the brain, I'm convinced it's the brain that has this modulating effect, that it just gets used to not having so much estrogen, and so other aspects pick up, they share the load. It's like your adrenal glands. When the ovaries go into retirement, the adrenal glands actually do the backup job of the ovaries. The body is so clever, and we still only understand a small aspect of it. So it definitely does feel like it improves as time goes on. I used to be highly organized. I managed a department of like nearly 90 people back in the day, and I knew the meetings, the schedules, I knew things that I needed to do every day without even looking at a list. And then, perimenopause hit, and it's just like, the I have no idea what I'm doing. And then post-menopause, again, I've run several businesses. I'm probably not quite as on the ball as I used to be, but I'm 55. I'm not sort of in my mid-20s or 30s anymore. So, it does have an impact, but you definitely get some kind of clarity back. And, next week I will go into some of these things that are going to support that brain clarity, that brain energy, so that if you're in the thick of it right now, fret not. There are things that you can do to help improve your situation at the moment, even if you're in those perimenopausal years where your sex hormones are fluctuating. There are still things that you can do to help to support yourself. The fact that we have less estrogen in the brain means that we lose our resilience to stress. Stress is always out there, but if you can manage it more easily, it doesn't have such a negative impact on you. So because estrogen affects, our dopamine, our serotonin, our GABA, our glucose uptake, it does have that dampening effect on how much stress we can tolerate. It also might account for that anxiety that you might wake up with in the early hours, and it's like this crushing weight on your chest, and you never used to suffer with it. You might get the jitters, you might get the heart palpitations. All of that is linked to falling estrogen, and also the impact that has on the biology of the brain. So it's your brain that really is recalibrating while it adjusts to the different hormone levels. And also how you're feeling is very valid. It's not about trying to smooth over the fact that you're going through all these changes. It's really important that you acknowledge that they're happening, but also have that glimmer of hope that while you might be feeling pretty ropey and just peed off with things at the moment, you can improve how you're feeling and how actually your brain is reacting. And you might find that you've actually been prescribed antidepressants. It is well documented now that antidepressants don't necessarily help with low mood associated with menopause. And this is why asking for support that addresses menopause specifically can be possibly the more effective route that you could take, rather than just assuming it's something that an antidepressant would fix for you. And I've been a psychotherapist for over 20 plus years, and one thing I really want you to take from this is that if you're starting to feel like you're not quite yourself, you're feeling like things are getting on top of you, you might be having emotional outbursts more often than you would normally have, you're not sleeping properly, you just feel that things are building up, do not wait until you feel like you've reached the melting point, or that you feel like you've completely lost control of everything. The sooner you can get help, speaking help, talking therapy, the more effective and the quicker it will support you. And I think a lot of people assume that once you start to have therapy, you have to have therapy for years, because you hear of people, they have a therapist for years and years and years. I honestly and truly think that if you're paying your therapist for, unless it's a very, very deep rooted issue that might reveal other issues as therapy goes along, you should not be needing therapy for weeks on end. Even just a few sessions, one or two, can make an enormous difference to how much more empowered you feel, to give you clarity, to listen to you completely unjudged. I think often, it's hard because you might have friends, you might have family members who are judging you, or you feel that you're being judged because your experience of going through the menopause is different. Whereas with a professional therapist, it is completely unjudged. You can literally say whatever is on your mind, whatever's weighing on your heart, and that therapist will listen to you and help you find a way through the chaos that could possibly be something of your daily existence right now. And I understand, private therapy sessions can be quite pricey, and waiting list, if you're being referred by the NHS, also can take quite a long time. If you are going down the private route, I would definitely go for a therapist that offers you a free 20-minute, 30-minute, whatever it might be, consultation, because it's really important that you have that rapport with that individual and that the therapist can lay out literally how they think they would take you on, and how they're going to work with you, and maybe the types of therapy that they would use, and give you also an idea of how long it's likely to take, and you give you a really good idea, or at least an overview of what to expect from the sessions, so that when you then go into your session, whether it's face to face or virtual, I do face-to-face and virtual sessions, they can both be equally effective. The most important thing is that you have trust in your therapist, and that you feel that you have that rapport, and that your therapist is really there to support you. If you can only go the NHS route, and you're on a long waiting list and you've not been able to talk to anybody yet, Google the various free organisations that can offer you support. You can Google for Mind, Samaritans, NHS, Every Mind Matters, Rethink Mental Illness, and the Mental Health Foundation. I will list those numbers in the description beneath this video. And a few tips to help you today to help settle those erratic feelings that you might be experiencing right now. Get out into nature daily. Whether it's sunny, raining, blowing a hoolie, whatever it might be, as long as it's not like dangerous out there for you, spend some time outside, and ideally just listen, engage with nature. How does the breeze feel on your face? How do the birds sound? Can you hear the leaves rustling in the trees? How does the ground feel beneath your feet? Really try and engage yourself in your surroundings. What birds can you hear? Can you start to learn how to identify some various bird songs? And in that way, it really does take you out of this intense inner world that you're experiencing, and just helps to soothe your frayed nerves. It's ever so beneficial for you, and it will also be giving you a little bit of vitamin D, which is really good for your mental health. Another thing is deep breathing. Whenever I have an anxiety client or somebody struggling with severe overload, one of the first things I teach them is how to deep breathe, and proper diaphragmatic breathing makes a massive difference to you. And it doesn't need to be complicated. You can breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, breathe slowly out through your mouth for 4 seconds, hold it out for 4 seconds. And that's called box breathing. So in for 4, hold it in for 4, out for 4, and then hold it out for 4. Or do 6 seconds or 3 seconds. Find the seconds that work best for you, but you'll find that will help to calm your nervous system, particularly if you're waking up in the early hours and you're exhausted and you're feeling those stressy feelings. Deep breathing or box breathing is really going to help to soothe you. Another thing that you can do if you're struggling to go back to sleep after you've done some deep breathing is, it's hard to describe, but try and look at the inside of your eyelids. When you close your eyes, often you can see lights and patterns, but you can also see lights and patterns even in the dark. You'll notice that you might be able to see some of the blood vessels in your eyelids, and just by focusing on that darkness and trying to decipher what you're seeing, it just takes your mind away from all those crazy thoughts that in the light of day mean nothing to you, but then at night time they just develop into these gigantic concerns, and your mind runs riot with you, and you end up having a very frazzled night's sleep. So just to keep it really simple at this stage, I will dive into these things in more detail next week, but deep breathing, time outside, and if you can't go back to sleep after you've been awake for a while, just focus on looking at the inside of your eyelids. You try it. I think you'll get what I mean. It actually has a really calming effect on you, but also will help to take away the distraction of those busy thoughts. Stress, anxiety, mental health issues in general are so common in menopause. Never feel alone. If you cannot get a private appointment, you can't afford a private appointment, you're on the long waiting list for the NHS. Consider supporting yourself by getting outside, maybe calling those numbers that are listed in the description. And next week, I'm going to be diving into the specifics of how to build emotional resilience into your life and give you practical, grounded strategies to work with your biology and your nervous system, because we're all unique. And what works for one person might not work for you, and vice versa. You can begin to feel lighter and more in control. Thank you for being here and for giving yourself permission to care for yourself. It's a big thing. It's so easy to put yourself on the back burner and to look after everyone else. When you start to build a little bit of resilience into your life, it has such a profound impact on the dynamics of all your other relationships, but most importantly, the relationship that you have with yourself. And you deserve that relationship that you want to have with yourself. If you found this helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel and you won't miss next week's episode. Until then, take good care of yourself.